Yeah. Uh. Yeah. Yeah.
And welcome back to the Damn Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Bahns, and joining me, as always, is BeaverBlitz.com publisher Angie Machado. Angie, what do you think of that new intro? We're big time now.
That is awesome, Carter. I love it, and I love the screen. It all looks good. We're taking it to a different level.
I'm hoping, obviously I don't have YouTube pulled up, so I can't tell what people are seeing. I can only see the behind the scenes kind of stuff. Hopefully everything looks good on their end. If you're watching us live on YouTube, you can comment and it'll show up on our end. We're using a different software. As you can tell, we're not on Zoom anymore. So, we were a few minutes delayed in getting on today because,
go ahead and say,
go
ahead and tell.
I'm not going to lie. We're going to keep it brutally honest here with the listeners. Angie's volume was down. She couldn't hear me, and I said, Angie, this is going to be a stupid question, but is your volume up? Because I can hear you just fine. She goes, no, it's not a stupid question. Her volume was off. So that's why there was a 2-minute delay in us hitting our live scheduled time. But if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or SoundCloud, obviously things went off without a problem. So
I just checked, and we are live over on YouTube too.
Perfect. All right. Well, with that being said, let's hop into this week's episode of the Damn Podcast. It's an exciting one. We are previewing the Pac-12 Baseball Tournament, the inaugural Pac-12 Baseball Tournament, which is set to get underway this week in Scottsdale, Arizona. I will be there covering the action for BeaverBlitz. Angie will be watching from her house, and I'm sure she'll be active in the lodge at BeaverBlitz, and we're going to have a fun week of coverage. But in other baseball news, Angie, I don't know how much MLB you watch, but I'm sure you did not miss the big news that unfolded this weekend that had some Oregon State implications.
No, and it had Sherwood implications too, Carter, which you and I both there are from Sherwood. So Adley Rutschman getting that call up and that video. So I was up bright and early. We had to leave the house yesterday, Saturday morning at 6:15 a.m. as Jack had a baseball tournament in Banks, Oregon. Bright and early, I'm in the car on the way, and I see that call up, the video where Adley is in his manager's office in AAA. And I'm not going to, I did not cry, but there was a little lump in my throat of proudness there. We'd already dropped Jack off. So when I came back, I had to show the kids. And if you could have seen the little glimmer in these 14-year-old eyes, they were warming up and they came over, what, Adley? And they watched it. And then to watch that moment where he actually was behind the plate. I don't know if you saw that, Carter, talked to the umpire, and he really soaked in that moment of the crowd cheering. And it looks like he choked up a little bit, maybe a little biting at the lower lip. And then, dude, not wasting time with a stand-up triple. I mean, proud is an understatement.
Not a bad debut for somebody who's tabbed as the number one prospect in baseball right now. Obviously, he's on track to lose that prospect status pretty quick as he, continues to work his way through his very, very young major league career. But Adley Rutschman, former Golden Spikes winner at Oregon State, former standout at Sherwood High School, a great representative for the city that you and I, live in, and the university we've been affiliated with for years. Really cool to see Adley go out there and kind of steal the show right away.
What'd you think of my mom, my 72-year-old mom, actually I texted her the video because she's not on Twitter. And she said, I love it. And he's still adorable, but he needs to cut his hair. That is the world according to a 72-year-old grandma. What
a little different look.
It. Yeah,
a little different look than what we got used to during his standout days at Oregon State. That's for sure. But Baltimore, lucky to have him. I know that city, that fan base is super fired up for him to finally get the call. It had been a couple of long years. Obviously, this year he had the injury in the preseason, and then finally worked his way up through the rehab assignment and eventually got the call this weekend, Saturday morning, getting the call up to the major leagues. So with that being said, I think, Angie, we should have a toast to Adley.
Cheers to Adley.
I don't know what, if you're going with a local brewery or a winery, or who you're going to promote today, but I'll let you go first.
I didn't. I actually am drinking water right now, but I had went to a local winery yesterday for a pickup party. So, and I'll give them a shout out. J.K. Carrier over on Parrot Mountain, one of my absolute favorites. They killed it with their pickup party. Had great food from Renegade Food Truck, and yeah, it's my favorite. They have some really good wines. But tonight I'm drinking water just because it's a Sunday night.
Hey, the drink of champions right there, Angie Machado, drinking water tonight on this Sunday night. I'm going to break out the mango cart from Golden Road Brewing in Los Angeles. It's one of my new favorites. Actually discovered it at Claude Felter's in Corvallis a couple of weeks ago and said, I need to find it. Found it at Trader Joe's, got a 6-pack. So
what is it? Is it a hard kombucha? Is it a...
No, it's actually a wheat ale.
Okay.
But it's brewed with mango. So it's got some fruity notes to it.
Okay.
But with that being said, I will crack this open as we give a little toast to Adley Rutschman making his way to the major leagues.
I should run and open a bottle, but we're live, so I can't open a bottle of wine right now, and nobody's home. Right. So cheers with my water.
With that being said, we're going to preview the show here real quick and then get right into things. Oregon State softball did something that it's only done one other time in program history. We're going to jump right into that in just a second. And then the majority of today's show, we're going to spend talking about baseball. Obviously, in the middle of an incredible season, couple losses down the stretch, but they're gearing up for the postseason. So we're going to recap the regular season, talk Pac-12 Baseball Tournament, and see, how far we think this team could make it in the postseason. But Angie, softball, not something that you and I cover super in depth, not something that, I'll be honest, that I watch very often. But when Oregon State makes the postseason in any sport, I'm tuned in. And the last couple of days watching this Oregon State softball team go 3-1, 4-1 in the Knoxville regional, and to defeat number 11 Tennessee, the host team there, and to beat them twice today on their home turf. Super impressive. Oregon State softball heading to the super regionals for the second time in school history. Angie.
Huge. I can't even put into words how big that is for Oregon State. And just as a rival note, the Ducks did not move on to the super regionals. So that is big too, because Oregon has been kind of a bigger softball school the past decade or so. So Oregon State, for so many years they struggled at softball. And I know with Laura Berg, the addition of Laura Berg, there's been some high hopes, and they got over the hump today, and they're playing Stanford, which they beat. They beat Stanford a couple times this season. So softball's a funny game. I grew up playing it. It's so much pitching and bats. So I think Oregon State is showing that they're kind of waking up and coming alive at the right time.
You mentioned pitching and frankly bats too. One thing with softball that always amazes me is obviously the wear and tear on your arm in baseball as a pitcher is unlike a lot of things that you see in sports. But in softball, I mean, you can have a pitcher go out there and throw 100 pitches and come back and do the same thing the next day and then hit a home run on the other side of the field. What Mariah Mazan has done this regional, hitting the home runs to beat Tennessee, holding Tennessee hitless for, 4 or 5 innings at a time. That has been the performance to me that has been the most impressive to watch. Like I said, I'm not as tuned in with softball as I think some other Oregon State fans might be, just by nature of, in the springtime, I've got spring football, I've got baseball. I just don't have the bandwidth. But this team, from what I have seen over, this limited sample size, is really fun to watch. And they seem to have the talent on both sides of the ball to maybe go down to Stanford and punch their ticket to the Women's College World Series.
I think the sky's the limit right now. I mean, the Pac-12 is such a hard league in general, top to bottom in softball. So they've already had a tough season playing some really top opponents, but same with the SEC. So to go out there and to, like I said, drop to the losers bracket by losing to Tennessee yesterday, and then come back and beat them twice at their home field, huge. So they have to be feeling pretty good now about coming home and facing a team they faced several times this season, and they do consistently, just being in conference.
Yeah, so Stanford, who they match up with, obviously that's a Pac-12 opponent. Pretty standard for the NCAA to pair Pac-12 teams up against each other in the supers to limit the amount of Pac-12 teams in the College World Series on the men's and women's side. It's a whole conspiracy. If you need a refresher on it, it'll come up in about a week when the men's tournament is, when the bracket's revealed. There will be people saying, hey, why are there so many West Coast teams playing each other this early in the tournament? Happens every year. But yes, Oregon State and Stanford will meet in the super regionals on the softball side of things. So they're both 3 seeds. Oregon State obviously comes out of the Knoxville regional, beating Tennessee, but then Stanford took care of business in Tuscaloosa, taking down Alabama, which I believe is the first time Alabama has not reached the super regionals in 17 years.
Yeah, 2005. Yeah.
That's
crazy.
That's an impressive streak to break if you're Stanford. So
yeah.
By nature of both of those squads being 3 seeds, hosting, I don't know how the hosting, the process goes to figure out who hosts in that situation. But what I have seen is Stanford's softball Twitter account has said that the series is going to be played in California.
Yeah, that's because I believe Stanford was a higher seed to begin with, or in the overall rankings. So I think that's how it works, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many nuances to baseball and softball when you get to the postseason. The way that those brackets are set up, it's not really like anything you see in any other sport at any other level with, regional, super regionals, and then double elimination and everything. It complicates things. But we definitely wanted to make sure and touch on softball's success at the top of the show, because as we're recording here at 6:15 p.m. on a Sunday, that just unfolded about an hour and a half ago. So it's top of mind. I know a lot of Oregon State fans are, super thrilled about it, super excited, super proud, of course, to see the softball team come out and do something that it's only done one other time in program history. But we want to switch sides to baseball here. That's the main topic of today's show as we gear up for this Pac-12 tournament in 3 days now?
3 days. Yeah. When do you leave? Tuesday?
I'm heading out Tuesday afternoon. I'll fly out of Eugene, get down to Phoenix at about 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, and then Oregon State will play at 4:45 on Wednesday. So I'll have a little bit of time to get settled down there, get accustomed to the heat. It's going to be 102 degrees on Wednesday. It's going to be an experience for sure. But Angie, before we talk Pac-12 tournament, let's recap the regular season real quick. So Oregon State closes the regular season at 41-13 overall, 20-10 in the Pac-12, which puts them at second in the final conference standings. Angie, going into the year, we didn't make any season predictions on this podcast, but I don't know if you behind the scenes had an idea of how the season was going to unfold. But if I told you that Oregon State would have another 41 season and finish in the top 4 of the conference, obviously they finished second. How pleased would you be given what your expectations were preseason?
I think that's fair. I think we both had high expectations going into the season. They've had some bumps along the road, especially like losing Jake Fennings right out the gate there. But I think that was a downer the past 2 series, Arizona and UCLA. And I guess maybe I have to take credit because I have not watched a lot of this team. I followed your threads in the lodge all season, and I actually watched the last 2 series, like every game, and then they lose. So I'm a little superstitious in that. So now I'm like, I don't think I should turn on the TV anymore when the Beavers are playing.
You're the bad luck charm is what you're telling me.
I don't want to be, but dang, that was not fun. And like I said, Jack was watching. He's trying to get out of a batting slump himself. He's been watching these guys, and they weren't hitting either.
Well, Angie, I don't know if your bad luck mojo was selective at all, but Oregon State lost to everyone in the top 5 of the final Pac-12 standings, except for Oregon, as far as series are concerned.
Okay.
Obviously, they salvaged, most of those series, but they dropped series to Stanford, who is your regular season Pac-12 champion. They dropped a series to UCLA this past weekend. And then obviously last week went down to High Corbett Field and lost to Arizona. In the middle of all that, they sweep an Oregon team that goes into the Pac-12 tournament, number 4 in the conference, and obviously has a very strong RPI, will be in the postseason. So that's an impressive series win. But those other 3, Angie, how much does it concern you as we get into the postseason? And, obviously the level of competition rises. Everybody's good. Everybody's finishing in the top half of their conferences. As Oregon State gets ready to face some of this tougher competition, are you nervous at all? Are you concerned given what the Beavers did against some of the better teams in the Pac-12?
I'm not. I mean, watching Arizona especially, I think they're really good. I think their RPI maybe doesn't show it, but I think when I walked away from that Arizona series thinking they were way better than maybe what their record and what their RPI showed. UCLA as well, but I think this is going to be a big test for Mitch Canham, and can he get these guys back in the right frame of mind? And I think he can. I think this is a big test, but I think this is where these coaches and managers earn their money is by getting these guys back, their heads right, getting them back focused. I don't want to say serious because we know that they're taking every series seriously, but just kind of buckling down and getting back to the basics and figuring some things out. So what about you, Carter? I mean, does it worry you that they struggled down the stretch?
Well, I think to your point, we saw some of that bounce back ability yesterday on Saturday as Oregon State came back and kind of blew UCLA out of the water, winning that game 9-3 to salvage the series after a couple of very close games. It's not like Oregon State was getting boat raced by UCLA or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, these were tight games. Oregon State was one big hit away from winning both of them, just couldn't get it done. So I think you saw some resilience from the team yesterday. The offense in particular really got it going again. I think the changes that Mitch Canham made to the lineup this weekend after game 1, I believe going into game 2, we saw that really play out in a big way with Wade Meckler being dropped down to 3rd in the lineup. He had hit in the leadoff spot all year, goes down to 3rd. Travis Bazzana takes the leadoff role. And, with that comes some shifting in the middle of that, in that mix too. Garrett Forster hops up to the 2 hole. And then Friday night, game 2, you see Wilson Weber come in for his first collegiate baseball appearance at designated hitter. He goes 0 for 2 with a strikeout. But I think that just goes to show like how desperate Oregon State was for production in the bottom half of its lineup. You look at the 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, and you've got Kyle Dernetti, who's right at the Mendoza line. Matthew Gretler is below it. Greg Fuchs has, had some streaks, but the consistency isn't always there for him. Mason Guerra, I don't want to say he's a liability defensively, but he's certainly not your best option at third base. But he's the only one who's been hitting. So going forward, I know I'm tangenting here, but going forward, I would like to see Mason Guerra at designated hitter.
Yeah, I was going to say, would you put him at DH? Because Gretler hasn't been hitting great, but he is such a golden glove out there and a good leader in the infield.
Yeah, I mean, I think for defensive purposes, you can sacrifice one guy in your lineup offensively. The problem is too many times this year, Oregon State's had to sacrifice 2 or 3 guys because the entire left side of the infield, stellar defensively, but they just haven't found anybody who's been able to hit the ball with consistency. And going back to our point about, struggling against top competition, that's really where you see the hole in the lineup come to play. Having only one half of your lineup come through for you against a Stanford, who's a top 5 team right now, against UCLA, who's been in the top 25 all year, against Arizona, who knows how to play in that ballpark at High Corbett Field, and is going to make you pay for any mistake or any lack of production. The fact that they, have struggled in those spots, I think that's where you're seeing some of the struggles come from against that better competition.
Do you think the heat is going to bother some of Oregon State, Oregon, Stanford down in Tempe this week, or Scottsdale?
You'd hope not, but I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, it's gonna be 102 degrees at first pitch at 4:45 p.m. on Wednesday when Oregon State plays Washington in the first round of this tournament. Obviously, we're going to talk more tournament here in a few minutes, but to your point about the weather, Oregon State just played down in Tucson a week ago.
And it was over 100 there. It was
lost 2 out of 3. Lost 2 out of 3 in the middle of the day, and in weather that's very comparable to what we're going to be seeing in Scottsdale. Scottsdale Stadium plays more like a major league park than High Corbett Field, with wonky dimensions, thin air, and everything.
And concrete infield.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more true to life baseball, if that's even if that's even a thing, in Scottsdale than you might see in Tucson. So as far as the immediate effects it has on the game, I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue as it might be if you're playing on campus at Arizona. But just the sheer fact that you're playing outside under the beating sunlight, 102 degrees, that's going to take a toll on you. And I think that's where it becomes important to win your first 2 games to get a day off. The way that this schedule lines up in Scottsdale is if you win your first 2 games, you do not play on Friday. And I think that's going to be big for teams to recharge. But Angie, if you want to give any more thoughts on the regular season before we dive into some stats, throw it at me, because I've got a whole bunch of stats to run through here.
No, like I said, I walked away. I walked away after watching, especially the Arizona series, even with the losses. Really impressed, even top to bottom in the order. I know they struggled a little bit, but they have guys that can get hits. They might not be consistent, but this is a team I think that can go to Omaha. But like I said earlier about softball being kind of a funny game, so is baseball, and we've seen it time and time again that sometimes just opportune hits are all you need for the better team to go down. If the other team is just happens to fall in a hole, or it, just that timing of a hit can make such a difference in what happens. So.
Yeah, but before we get into stats and individual standouts, which is what we're going to touch on next, you mentioned Omaha, and anytime you mention Omaha, I think of what you have to do to get there. And for Oregon State, if we're being honest, the Pac-12 tournament doesn't really mean much. Oregon State's in the field, going to host a regional. You could argue, based on the way they've closed the regular season, they might need to win a game or 2 to lock up a top 8 seed and host in the Supers if they're able to reach that point. But Angie, I want your thought on this. Oregon State closing the regular season, losing 2 of 3 to UCLA. I don't know what their ranking is going to be come tomorrow afternoon, morning, when all of those are released. I don't know what their RPI is going to look like when this weekend is completely done nationally on the college baseball scene. But if Oregon State's right there at 5-6, do you think they need to win a game or 2 in Scottsdale to lock up a top 8 seed? Or do you think they've done enough? Is their strength of schedule good enough to override some of the losses they've had recently?
I would like to say it is, but I don't think it. I think they need to win a game or 2. And I'm going to be one of those people that right now. So if Oregon State was maybe a 4 or 5, 4th or 5th in the Pac-12, I would love the tournament. And I think this is the greatest thing in the world. But I'm not a fan of a Pac-12 baseball tournament for the reason that Oregon State, if it was in it right now today, they would be they're a top, they're a top 8. They're hosting, no questions asked. And I think, here's a team that everyone's gunning for. They are going to get everyone's best game. They're going to get everyone's best shot. So it puts that target on your back. And at some level, as a competitor, you want that. You want everyone's best. But I think they need to win 1 or 2 in Scottsdale to keep that, especially with the way they finished. If they had finished winning the last 2 series, maybe dropping a game each, I think they're fine. But I think losing 2 series, I think that's, even though they were good opponents, I think that's a big, something that the committee will look at. And again, then you're looking at human, the committee, who ever since that coach
Lindsey
at
Meggs.
Washington. I know. I was going to say that the coach that will not be named.
Well, we're going to have to name him here in a couple minutes when we preview who Oregon State's playing in round 1.
So Lindsey Meggs, when he did us wrong back in the day, I don't trust trust any of them. But I was going to keep it. I didn't want to, set JP off, So, but yeah, Lindsey Meggs so I don't trust anything when human involvement is in play either.
Yeah,
So.
I'll be the contrarian here and say I think Oregon State's done enough to get a top 8 seed, regardless of what happens in Scottsdale. I just think strength of schedule wise, they're right up there. As I haven't checked the number this weekend, but obviously playing a number 23 UCLA team only helps.
Yeah.
And before that, Oregon State was pretty much all year a top 5 team in terms of strength of schedule. I think that is enough. I think finishing second in the Pac-12 is a testament to your ability to win games when it matters most. Obviously, they dropped 2 series down the stretch, but they didn't get swept. True. They did still beat good teams. They just didn't do it often enough to take those series. But I think we'll see Oregon State hosting all the way to Omaha if they continue to win in the postseason, of course.
Yes,
but
we're not going to do any jinxes here.
Yeah, of course not. Before we talk more Pac-12 baseball tournament, I want to talk about some stats and individual standouts from the regular season. So, Angie, this is going to be a lot of me talking here. I'm going to go down the list of these. So before we hopped on here, I went to the NCAA baseball stats database. I went to the Pac-12 stats database, and I pulled from all of the available statistics that they measure nationally, offensively and defensively, the categories that Oregon State ranked in the top 50 of all college baseball programs in Division I.
Okay.
And then in the Pac-12, I pulled all of the stats offensively, defensively that they rank in the top 3.
Okay. So they're going to run through.
I'm going to run through all of those. We'll stop midway through and kind of get your thoughts on some of these numbers. But let's get started here nationally. These are the statistics that Oregon State ranked in the top 50 in all of college baseball on the offensive side. They ranked 5th in walks drawn, 21st in triples, 24th in on-base percentage, 27th in doubles, 44th in runs scored. Defensively, and this is where you're going to hear a lot more numbers here with the pitching staff that Oregon State's had and the defense that it's fielded. Oregon State was the number 1 team in college baseball in fielding percentage, and that really remained true all year.
All year, yeah.
They were also 2nd in walks per 9, 3rd in strikeout to walk ratio, 4th in whip. You're sensing a trend there.
Yeah.
Tied for 8th in shutouts, 10th in ERA, tied for 12th in hit by pitches allowed, 25th in hits allowed per 9, and 48th in K per 9. So, Angie, the trend that I point to there is you see walks per 9, you see strikeout to walk ratio, and then you see whip, which is obviously walks and hits per innings. The common denominator there is obviously Oregon State's ability to command the strike zone, limit walks, limit free passes, and obviously that that shows up in the hit by pitch as well. So, Angie, the pitcher's ability to limit free passes, how big has that been?
Huge. That is huge. I mean, if you could keep them, make them earn anytime, their spots on base, and then let him hit. I mean, that's what I keep telling my son when he when he pitches. I'm like, let him hit and let your defense take care of it. That's what you need to do. So I'm super impressed with the pitching staff.
And that's an area too, the free passes that Mitch Canham was absolutely furious with last year.
Yeah.
He preached we have to limit free passes, and I think the pitchers took that to heart this offseason.
They did. So, but I'm going to go off on a tangent now too, because this has been a conversation in the lodge. What are your thoughts then on Rich Dorman? Because I know last year he took a lot of heat in the lodge. What are your thoughts this year?
I've been impressed. I think what he's been able to do in turning the bullpen's success around after what you saw in the first, maybe month of the season, month and a half. Think about how many times Oregon State relied on its offense to win games. There were times, think back to the midweek series against Nevada when they had to score 11, 13 runs to win those games. Think about, who else? I mean, Portland earlier in the year, I want to say it was high scoring. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the point being, Oregon State's bullpen cost the Beavers some early season games, I think, in non-conference play. The back end of the bullpen in particular, it took a while before Ryan Brown emerged as the saves leader. I think that was one of the main weaknesses of this team. And Rich Dorman, to his credit, pinpointed the guys that he wanted to rely on, developed them. Mitchell Verberg, dramatically improved across the stretch of the season. And just kind of rode with the hot hand, and it worked out. Oregon State's pitching staff obviously is one of the best in the nation because of it. So I think Rich Dorman gets credit for developing the starters, and then of course turning things around in the bullpen.
Do you think he's pulling guys too quick, or is too slow to pull guys?
I feel like I kind of just have to leave that up to him. To be honest, like Oregon State fans, love to refer to Nate Yeskie as too late Nate.
Yeah.
But then, Rich Dorman was pulling guys early last year and the year before. And they're complaining about that. So
yeah,
you can't have
it's fans gonna fan.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk some Pac-12 stats here. So Oregon State finishes in the top 3 of the Pac-12 in the following offensive categories. They rank first in walks, first in stolen bases, first in on-base percentage, first in hits into double plays. They were second in sacrifice hits and runs scored, as well as RBI and triples, and they were third in doubles. So the offensive numbers I know didn't really show up in the national rankings, but as far as the Pac-12 context is concerned, Oregon State was right there with the best of them.
Okay, that's not good though, right? Hits into double plays. That's bad.
No, that's first being the lowest.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right.
Okay,
right.
I was like, no.
Yeah, no, they were hitting into fewer double plays.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Defensively, Oregon State in the Pac-12 was first in errors, first in fielding percentage. I'm going to pause myself. That's fewest errors.
Yeah, I got it now. I got it.
First in fewest errors, first in fielding percentage, first in runs allowed. In runs allowed, they were also top of the Pac-12 in walks allowed and K per 9, as well as passed balls. They were second in strikeouts, second in home runs allowed, ERA, third in hits allowed, third in assists, third in runners caught stealing percentage. A lot of numbers there, tripped up over a few words because there are so many stat categories that I'm listing. The point being, Oregon State's defense, pitching staff, easily the best in the Pac-12 and one of the best in the country.
Yes, agree. That's pretty impressive.
All right, individual standouts. A few more stats and then some opinion things here with some of these individuals. So Jacob Melton, outfielder, obviously, finished first in the Pac-12 in RBI. He is, I believe, fourth all-time in a single season at Oregon State. He's also fourth in a single season in home runs at Oregon State. He was fifth in home runs this year in the Pac-12. Justin Boyd finished first in the Pac-12 in stolen bases. Cooper Jerpy led the way in wins and strikeouts and was second in ERA. Ryan Brown was in a 3-way tie for the Pac-12 lead in saves. And there are quite a few other players who were not in the top 1 or 2 that don't show up on that, first page of the Pac-12 stats when you pull it up. But Angie, there's quite a few Pac-12 leaders on this Oregon State team.
Yeah. And I'll just throw it, Justin Boyd watching the Arizona series, and after he got hit in the hand in game 1, Oregon State struggled then. Because he luckily he's not out for a
he missed the next 2 games. He missed the remainder of the Arizona series.
And I would say that hurt Oregon State a lot, not having him in the lineup.
And then he comes back against UCLA and immediately is charged with an error in right field that allows UCLA to score the first run of the series in the top of the first inning. Second batter that came to the plate drove in a run. So it was kind of an inauspicious start to Boyd's return, but ever since then, he's really dialed it in, and you're seeing the Justin Boyd that you saw for the first, 3.5 months of the season. Yeah. Obviously huge to get him back. Major break, great luck for Oregon State that no bones in his hand were broken. I don't know if you know how many bones are in your hand, but it's a lot more than you can count with said hand. So
yes.
A great break for Oregon State to get Boyd back. Cooper Jerpy and Jacob Melton were actually named to a couple of midseason watch lists for some National Player of the Year awards. There's obviously the Golden Spikes Award and then the Dick Hauser Trophy, the latter of which named both of them semifinalists, I believe. So, you've got a pitcher and an outfielder, obviously one guy on both sides of the ball there. in the running for National Player of the Year, which is pretty good company.
Yeah, and I'm going to go on a guy that you didn't mention very much, true freshman Travis Bazzana.
Yep.
Flashes
I was just about to ask
there, I think. So, like I said, true freshman, but actually, I mean, there were quite a few true freshmen playing this year, or freshmen playing, but Travis Bazzana, true freshman. I can't speak highly enough of what I saw from him and the poise that he showed.
How about this, Angie? The fact that he got into a bit of a slump in mid-April to mid-May, and then got right in Arizona and continued that success into the UCLA series, getting him back, from whatever it was that he was dealing with, whether he was nursing an injury and battling through it, or if it was a mental thing, or if it was just a situation of, hey, this is a really long season. He's a freshman. He's never done it before. I don't know what the situation was there, but he went almost a month with only like 2 RBI to his name, after being one of the Pac-12 leaders for the first like 2 months of the year. So to get him back to the level that he's playing at right now, absolutely massive. Very similar to, getting Justin Boyd back in the lineup. I think having those 2 guys at full strength and hopefully, playing as well as they have this season is going to do wonders for Oregon State in the postseason. But Angie, is there anybody else that we haven't talked about on the stat leaderboards that has stood out to you? I've got a list of names here that I want to highlight.
Yeah, you could go through. You've been at every game. I mean, I could name guys, but you'll name them. I know.
Okay, so we just
if you miss anybody, I'll let you know.
Yeah, we just touched on Boyd and Bazzana, but here are a couple of names that have really stood out to me that aren't necessarily leading the nation or the Pac-12 in any categories, but have been absolutely instrumental in Oregon State's success this year. Those names include Wade Meckler and Garrett Forrester on the offensive side. And then defensively, you turn to the pitching staff. Jacob Kamatz, what he's done as a true freshman to step in as a Saturday starter. And he's looked like one of the better pitchers in the conference as a true freshman. Just incredible stuff. Mitchell Verberg, we talked about a couple of minutes ago in the bullpen to turn things around after a really, really rocky start. A lot of blown saves. I think the work that he put in with Rich Dorman, it's really starting to show over this last month. Ben Ferrer also out of the bullpen, absolute nails every time his number's called. He's a guy who in the postseason is going to have a big role as a long reliever. And then Jaron Hunter, who we haven't seen in 2 weeks, I expect to see in Arizona, and I'm curious. I'm intrigued where Oregon State's going to take this, because if you win the Pac-12 tournament, you have to win 4 games. That's, if you avoid a loss, Jaron Hunter has to pitch. Do you throw him in game 1 to give Cooper Jerby a full week of rest, set up your 3 biggest games for your weekend starters? Or do you save him for a potential elimination game? Do you wait and throw him in the middle of that 4-game stretch? I'm really curious to see what they do. Mitch Canham was non-committal after game 3 against UCLA when we spoke with him about the direction they were going to take with the pitching staff. But Jaron Hunter, a name that I wanted to highlight there, is somebody who hasn't given up a run in 3 outings. Yeah,
I'll just highlight the Ben Ferrer, because what I've seen from him has been nails too. So this is what gets interesting to me is postseason and managing pitchers, because that's the teams that have the pitching are the ones that can move on, because we've seen it time and time again. So it is an interesting. Do you pitch a guy that hasn't pitched in 2 weeks against Washington, which will be the weakest team there, or do you go out and try to win that first one regardless? I think I might lean toward trying to rest Jerby, just give him that full week.
I agree.
That's what I would say, just especially, but again, Mitch Canham Mitch Canham and Rich Dorman have the luxury of being able to see these guys every single day. So they know how they're looking, what their mental state's like. But that's kind of what the fun is what that's going to look like, how Oregon State's going to manage that. And how, having guys ready to go at a moment's notice. But if it was me right now, not knowing how Jaron Hunter has looked in the pen the past 2 weeks, I think I throw him against the Huskies.
And mind you, he pitched 2 really great midweek outings against Pac-12 teams, both times shutting out Oregon on the mound. The second time, the rest of the bullpen finished that shutout. First game, obviously, they still won. I think what he's proven against Pac-12 competition gives me enough trust to throw him out there in game one of the Pac-12 tournament, but we're going to have to wait to see what that decision looks like. We're going to talk more Pac-12 baseball tournament here in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you about BeaverBlitz.com, which is proud to be the leader in Oregon State football and men's basketball recruiting coverage. With access to the most talented and well-connected recruiting analysts in the nation, we're your source for all the latest scholarship offer, official visit, and transfer portal news. Year-round coverage of Oregon State football, men's basketball, baseball, and everything else within the athletic department makes BeaverBlitz.com the all-inclusive destination for in-depth analysis of all things Beaver sports. Join us today with a monthly or annual subscription to gain full access to our VIP articles, team of experts, and message board. Membership also grants the ability to chat with fellow Beaver fans and gain behind-the-scenes intel in the lodge. You'll get all this and more, including access to all of the team sites across the 24/7 Sports Network, with your subscription. So join today and keep up on all your favorite teams and your rivals too. Angie, Pac-12 tournament. We've talked a bunch about it already, but let's formally introduce this thing, because this is the first time. This is the first time the Pac-12 has done anything like this. So for those who are not familiar with the Pac-12 tournament, the format, whatnot, it is the exact same format as the College World Series. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know how the College World Series works. You've got 2 4-team divisions. They play double elimination, and then the winner of those 4-team brackets play each other in the championship. The difference is that in Scottsdale, the Pac-12 will be holding one single championship game. It's not a 2 out of 3 series. Things don't reset. You could have a 1-loss team against a team who hasn't lost in this tournament, and you only have to beat them once.
Okay.
So that's the one difference there. The winner of this tournament gets the automatic NCAA tournament bid from the Pac-12 conference. Obviously, a bit of a shakeup from the way things have normally worked, where the regular season champion gets the automatic bid. But Angie, how do you think that changes things? If you are Oregon State, if you're Stanford, if you're UCLA, a team who is constantly at the top of the Pac-12 standings, not having to worry about, am I in the tournament or not? Are you worried that a team like Washington, Cal, ASU might come in and have a little bit more motivation in the Pac-12 tournament because they're playing for something? They have a chance to get hot at the right time and sneak their way into the NCAA tournament, much like Oregon State did basketball-wise a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that gives some motivation, I think. And I also worry, does it potentially, lessen kind of the motivation for a team like Oregon State, Stanford, UCLA? Are they going to be coming in like we're in? We're just going to kind of cruise here and see what happens. Is there motivation? And then, like I said earlier, you're going to have the targets on your back because you're the best.
Well, I mean, we sit here and we talk about how, Oregon State doesn't even really need to show up to the Pac-12 tournament. They're already in. They're probably a host already. Well, I can tell you what, Mitch Canham's not telling his guys that.
Exactly. I mean, I personally would want my team looking at this like a warm-up too. This, how we're going to play during this tournament is going to dictate kind of how we play in the regionals.
And I think if you're Mitch Canham in Oregon State, you're in the tournament. You're probably hosting all the way to Omaha if you keep winning. But let's be honest, if you want to be successful in the tournament, you're going to have to get right, because you've lost 4 of your last 5 games. Yeah. You're recovering from a 4-game losing streak after not losing back-to-back games all year. Obviously, something's not working. You need to figure things out, and you have to do it quick. This is your opportunity to do it in a low-stakes environment. You've already wrapped up. Go for it. Ahead.
Oh, no. And if I'm Mitch Canham and the OSU Beavers, I'm pissed off that I'm not number 1 right now, and Stanford overtook me.
Yeah. I mean, there's motivation right there. Get them back and win the tournament. Yeah. They will get a chance if both teams win out to play each other in the championship game, because they're both in separate divisions. So the way it's split is, I don't have the bracket pulled up. I should, but
it's like 1 and 3 and 2 and
1, 3 and
2 and 4.
4, 5 are on one half.
Okay.
And then you get 2, 7, 3, 6 on the bottom half, which is where Oregon State is. So that's how you could potentially see an Oregon State Stanford rematch in the championship game. All of those games, mind you, will be on the Pac-12 network, which limits conference exposure at the most important time of the year, except for the championship game, which will air on ESPN2 Sunday night at 7 p.m. So championship game, you're getting the exposure there. But I think the fact that, you can turn on ESPN, ESPN Plus, SEC Network, wherever you are in the country and see these SEC teams battling it out in Alabama, but not the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I know the committee has the Pac-12 network, but we talk about this all the time with football. Limiting exposure is never a good thing.
No. And that's, what the new commissioner has to keep pushing. If you're going to have these tournaments, you need to get these, the ESPNs of the world on board. Because like you said, this is Memorial Day weekend. You're going to have people kind of barbecuing, turning on the baseball, and they're going to be seeing SEC.
Yep. So that being said, let's run through the field, the seeding, and then the first round matchups of this inaugural Pac-12 baseball tournament. So we mentioned it. Stanford has the number 1 seed. They're your regular season champs. They beat Oregon State in the standings by a single game. Oregon State, finishing the season as poorly as it did, kind of blew its 3-4 game lead on the conference. So if you're the Beavers, you hate to see that, but you're glad to have a chance to get Stanford back. Behind them, UCLA gets the 3 seed, Oregon the 4, and then in the bottom half of the bracket, you get Arizona at 5, California at 6, Washington 7, and then Arizona State under first-year head coach Willie Bloomquist in the final spot. So that means 3 teams didn't make the cut. Utah, USC, and who am I missing? Washington State. Those are the 3 that are left out. Pac-12, by nature of only having 11 teams in baseball, they can't do a 12-team tournament like SEC does. They had to limit it. I think 8 teams is the right number. 12, if you watch the SEC tournament, that thing gets real crazy real quick. A lot of games, a lot of teams. But those are the 3 teams that are left out. So how that shakes out for the first round, obviously we can't predict what's going to happen beyond that. But the first round, you see Oregon and Arizona in the 4-5 game at 9 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday. A very early morning for those teams.
Start.
I'm curious to see if and how that impacts their play. I don't think it'll be much. I mean, it's going to be hot already at 9 a.m. Yeah. They're going to wake up early anyways, and I would imagine the coaches are going to do everything in their power to make sure those guys are getting enough sleep. But
are you going to stop by that game at all since you're getting in late the night before?
Not the 9 a.m. game. No, I might try to. Yeah, I might try to catch some of the next game, which is number 1 Stanford versus number 8 Arizona State. First pitch in that game is approximately 45 minutes after the conclusion of game 1. So we'll see. That'll probably be approaching that 4:45 first pitch that Oregon State has. Depending on how much of a break there is between games, I'll probably try to pop into that one. So Oregon State in the 2 seed spot there gets number 7 Washington at 4:45 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, and then rounding it out, this is the time slot that Oregon State will be playing in if it beats Washington. So Get ready, get your midday coffee ready, because this game, first pitch is 45 minutes after the conclusion of game 3. Number 3 UCLA versus number 6 California will get started probably in the realm of 8:30 to 9 p.m.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's late.
But for your sake, Carter, I know how you operate. You're liking that later slot over the 9 a.m. slot.
Like is a strong word. I'm used to it. I'm used to it now. Yes. But I mean, the game wraps up at a reasonable time for me, like 11:30 or something. But that means I'm, writing a post-game story at 1-2 in the morning. So we'll see. Yeah. I'm obviously hoping Oregon State takes care of business against Washington, but the byproduct of that is a very late night. So brace yourselves for that. Obviously, the 4:45 time slot, Oregon State versus Washington. It's going to be the heat of the day. Sun will be setting towards the end of the game, but for the most part, this game is going to be played under direct sunlight in the hottest part of the day in the Sonoran Desert. So we'll see. It's going to be a hot one. Angie, I need your predictions. So give me Let's think. How do we want to approach this? Give me your first round prediction for Oregon State, and then give me your 2 championship teams and then a champion.
Okay, I'm going to go Oregon State beats Washington.
Okay. Give me a score on that too, since we know that the matchup's actually going to happen.
Oregon State's going to take care of business handily, 10-1. I'm going
blowout in the first round.
Go.
George Kliavkoff on hand watching the Oregon State Beavers beat Washington 10-1 in the first round of the inaugural Pac-12 Baseball Tournament. You heard it here first. Angie Machado with the prediction.
Yes. And then final 2 teams.
Keep in mind that the divisional structure, it has to be a possible.
Yeah, you're going to totally disagree with me here, but
all right.
I actually think Oregon State makes it to the finals, and I think they play Arizona.
Okay.
Because I think Arizona is peaking. Although Arizona, didn't they lose to Oregon?
They did.
Like
two of 3, I believe.
2 of 3. So, yeah, they looked good. But, again, that was at high Corbett. But I do think Arizona, in the heat, they're used to it.
Yeah.
I don't think UCLA is that. I mean, I think they're good. I don't think they're, like, elite. Cal, no. So, yeah, Oregon State in that one. ASU, not good. And I would love to see Oregon State Stanford.
Yeah.
That's what I would love to see. Or let's be real. I'd like to see Oregon State, Oregon too.
That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
because if you're Oregon State, that's a matchup you can win. You've done it 5 times already. You haven't lost to them. You see Stanford, you've lost 2 of 3 to them. Arizona, you lost 2 of 3 to them. Arizona State, obviously, I think anybody would want to see them. Like, no offense to Willie Bloomquist, but like,
yeah. I mean,
it's a struggle turning a program around in your first year, and to get into the field is impressive enough. So I give him. I mean,
I love the potential matchups here, though. Like I said, if I'm Oregon State, I want to play Oregon or Stanford for 2 different reasons. Like you said, because you can beat Oregon. Plus, it's your rival. And then Stanford, just because they kind of backdoored their way into that number 1 spot because you basically sucked. So, and I'm going to be harsh there, but Oregon State sucked the last 2 series.
That's true. All right. So you've got Oregon State, Arizona in the finals. Who wins it?
Oregon State. I'm putting a lot of credit, and I'm not being a homer right now because last year I was not quite on the whole Mitch Canham train. I was really skeptical whether he could get these guys the mental. That was where I thought Coach Casey was so good, was the mental part of getting these guys prepared. What I've seen this year, take out the last 2 weeks evidence, but I actually think, now this is going to be my bold prediction, kind of like my prediction that I made earlier with football. My bold prediction is that Mitch Canham will be at Oregon State a very, very long time, and he will surpass. I mean, I think he has the chance to be even better than Pat Casey was.
You think he's an Oregon State lifer? Like,
I do.
As long as he
wants it,
is winning and wants it. You think it's his job.
I think if he keeps the hunger that I've seen, if he keeps the like I said, my big worry with him was the whole. Did he have that mental, the ability to get the guys' mental buy-in and change? When they would struggle. I mean, it's baseball. Guys go through slumps. They go through, and would they be able to do that? What I've seen from him the past, even turning around and winning that last game against UCLA, getting those guys' minds right. I think it's going to get better from here. I do think he's learning kind of on the fly, but I like the aggressiveness I've seen from him on, base running. And I'm putting in, I'm going to blank, the quarterback from Lake Oswego as a pinch hitter, Jake Ducart. Thank you. In that Arizona series was genius. I mean, they knew he was going to get hit at the right time. I think, like I said, I guess I was not on the Mitch Canham train for the last couple of years, or Coach Canham, Coach Canham, because remember I kind of got a little scolding one day when I called him Mitch Canham, and then I corrected myself and said Coach, and he kind of.
Coach Canham. Welcome to the Coach Canham train.
Coach Canham
we're glad to have you.
Yes.
So that's Angie's prediction. Oregon State wins the inaugural Pac-12
What's yours?
Baseball Tournament.
Since I had to go on the record.
I have not thought about this
I hadn't
until
either.
now.
Yes,
I made
let's
sure
go.
to wait until we went live to make this prediction. So I'm going to kind of break down the field real quick. I'm going to go very in depth here. So your first matchup is Oregon, Arizona. I think the fact that Oregon just took 2 of 3 from them tells you all you need to know about that. I think Oregon stays in the winner's bracket there to play Stanford. That is a matchup I'm really excited to see. I think Oregon's better than their number 4 seed, and I think Stanford, quite frankly, as well as they've played recently, I think Oregon State's still the better team. So I think you have an overseeded and an underseeded team in that matchup, but I do think Stanford comes out of that. They're hot. They've won 12 in a row. It's their longest winning streak since 1999. David Esker is a guy who knows how to coach in the postseason. They don't have a ton to play for, but I do think, a couple of wins wouldn't hurt in terms of locking up a top 8 seed. I think they have a little tiny bit more work to do than Oregon State does. So I think Stanford eventually is going to emerge out of that division, but Oregon's going to give them a pretty good run for their money. I just don't see Arizona doing enough to get by both of those teams. I think, Arizona might have been the product of a little home field advantage against Oregon State, and then they come up to Oregon and lose 2 of 3 there. You have to ride the hot hand in college baseball when it comes to the postseason, and that is Stanford. So Stanford gets my vote for I wanted to say North champion, but the Division I, first division in this tournament. In the bottom half, really interesting between Oregon State and UCLA. They won't play each other until the second round if they both win. And then you get a really intriguing, rematch of 2 teams that just went at it this past weekend at Goss. They go down to an environment that I think will favor Oregon State. I think you'll see more Oregon State fans there. I base that on, how many people make the trip down to Surprise every winter. I know it's a short trip for UCLA, but I think Oregon State will dominate the fan bases there outside of Arizona and Arizona State. Obviously, home field advantage didn't do much for the Beavers against UCLA, but I think the way the Beavers played in Game 3 and the fact that they know they probably need to win 1 game to take any question out of their, top 8 seed status, I think they have the motivation, and I think they might, I know it's 1 game, but I think they might have more momentum than UCLA, who, mind you, just got swept by Washington 2 weeks ago. I think Oregon State and Stanford go chalk. I think you see a 1-2 matchup in the championship game. But if I had to pick a dark horse, I'd say Arizona and UCLA. Oregon's right there with Arizona, but the home field advantage, I know I just kind of poo-pooed Arizona against Oregon, but the home field advantage is worth something. It's a big reason Arizona beat Oregon State. There's going to be all sorts of U of A fans there. So those are my 2 dark horses, but I do think Oregon State and Stanford meet in the championship. And I think, like I said, I got to ride with a hot team, and I think I go Stanford winning the inaugural Pac-12 baseball tournament.
There you go. Okay, are you on the Mitch Canham train?
Oh, I have been. Yeah, I think I took into account. Man, we're really going on a tangent here, but I think a good way to close out the show is to remind everyone how lucky Oregon State is to have Mitch Canham. This is a guy who skyrocketed through the Mariners organization as a manager. Went from single A to, I can't remember exactly, low A to high A to double A, or
it was short season to double A or something.
I mean, he had we got a Duke sighting in the background.
Yeah, Duke's background.
He was skyrocketing through that organization. I think he was on track for an MLB managing job in probably the next 5 years or so. He was probably on track to be a very, very young manager somewhere. Everybody in those circles has always been very high on him. And obviously, if you get the Pat Casey vote of confidence, that's all I need to know as somebody who watched Pat Casey turn this program around and win 3 championships.
And to have someone, and see, this is why I think he's a lifer if he chooses to be, because he chose to turn down kind of the pinnacle of your profession to come back
Yeah. And to raise a family here, he's got 2 young kids.
Yeah.
To your point, I think he's here as long as he wants the job and as long as he's winning. And I think both of those things are conducive to him staying here for a very, very long time. So yes, I have always been on the Mitch Canham train. I remain on said train, and I will be on it until, for whatever reason down the line, let's say the Oregon State baseball program collapses. I don't see it happening, but that would be what it takes for me to hop off the band.
Okay, so see, Carter's been there. It took me a little bit. Like I said, I liked him. I just didn't know if he had it. But I saw some things this past couple weekends.
Yeah.
He's got it.
All right, we have hit the 1 hour mark, so that is our cue. I want to thank everybody who has watched and listened to us live on YouTube. Enjoy, this new setup we've got with this new software we're using. We really appreciate everybody who's interacted with us throughout the show. I know we've gotten some comments. I wanted to, hey, you know what? Let's show off this new feature.
Let's show it because I want to see it.
So I've got the ability here to throw some YouTube comments onto the screen. So unfortunately, if you're listening to us after the fact, you're not going to see this. But if you're watching on YouTube live or after the fact, check this out. We're going to throw a comment on here from Chantry Star, who says 102-degree weather is miserable weather to play baseball. How cool does that look on the screen there?
That is so cool. Okay.
So there's some incentive if you, over the next, however long we're going to use this software probably for the foreseeable future. If you've got something you want to say it. And if it's good enough to, to show on screen, we'll pop it up there. And, hopefully when we have a little bit less to talk about, this is a really busy show. We'll get some more interaction with those who are commenting along with us. But yeah, I'm going to leave that up there for the remainder of the show as we close this out. Previewing the week ahead at BeaverBlitz. Obviously, I'll be down there in Scottsdale covering the action. I'm going to try to get to as many games as possible. I know the press box is pretty limited, so I don't know if we'll get to every game.
Hey, and Carter got a really cool Airbnb, by the way. So
yeah,
he does need to sit by the pool.
Yeah, if I'm not in the press box, you can probably catch me at my private Airbnb pool. Drink in hand, writing a baseball preview or recap.
We don't mess around at BeaverBlitz. So if you are listening, if Carter ever leaves, you're going to want to come work for me because I mess around.
She's already auctioning off my job before I even leave. How about that? You can follow her on Twitter. You can follow her on Twitter if you want more shenanigans like that at Angie Machado 1. You can follow me.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it right now because I want you to stay want you to stay forever. But I know that's probably not in the cards.
She is Angie Machado 1 on Twitter. I'm at Carter Bahns. We thank you for joining us for this Pac-12 Baseball Tournament preview episode of the Damn Podcast. And I think the next time we talk will probably be afterwards to recap it and then talk baseball regionals. So
let's do it.
Thanks for tuning in live on YouTube. Thanks for listening to us on your favorite podcast app. And we will catch you after Angie says something.
One thing, because I don't want people to think that we're not covering football recruiting. Because this past weekend has been a big football recruiting weekend. A handful of guys on campus, to the point that Jonathan Smith stayed in Corvallis when his kid was up here in Sherwood playing baseball tournament. We'll have more in the lodge at BeaverBlitz. So remember and checking that out. That's all. There you go.
Stay tuned. BeaverBlitz, Damn Podcast coming back next week after the Pac-12 Baseball Tournament. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you later.